The marsh civilization of Villanova di Bagnacavallo originates in the Bacrish wetland area, which is now part of the regional park of the Po Delta. This natural park is a biodiverse ecosystem of exceptional environmental importance. Here, water, flora and fauna coexist in a delicate balance. Looking back over the history of the area can help us to understand how this landscape, which is so varied in terms of shapes and colors, has taken shape over the course of time. Over the past 3,000 years, the coastline between Romagna and Venice has progressively expanded eastwards, thanks to the debris that the River Po and other smaller rivers have deposited in the estuary. This phenomenon is called altification, and it has been the origin of a complex system of salt marshes and freshwater wetlands. In the past, these marshes were transport routes used by people trying to reach the Po Valley by boat. This is the case of the Lamone River, which rapidly comes down from the Tuscan Apennines to the countryside of Bassa Romagna. In the process, the river transported a huge amount of fertile and impermeable clay. This caused the stagnation of water on shallow wetlands and the creation of large flooded forests. This environment has generated a thick vegetation of marsh plants that the industrious locals have used for a unique purpose. The inhabitants of Villanova have used these wild plants to create the most important and characteristic trait of the area. In the 14th century, the hamlet was known as Villanova of the Huts. It was established on raised grounds in the middle of wide wetlands that were part of a larger system of inland waterways and small harbors, which were typical of the right bank of the Po River. According to some accounts, these earliest dwellers of Villanova were exiles and criminals who found shelter and a livelihood in the wetlands between the Papal States and the Republic of Venice. This is how the first settlements started. They were outside laws and rules. At the same time, the settlers started using marsh plants to make objects and tools for fishing and for day-to-day purposes. This activity continued to develop in the following centuries, despite the large land reclamations of modern days that drained large areas in the north of Romagna and pushed the locals to search for marsh plants farther afield in the wetlands of Ravenna and Argenta. In 1839, the village of Ammonite suffered severe flooding following an exceptionally rainy season, which caused the banks of the Lamone River to burst. The Papal States intervened and created the Cassa di Colmata, a floodplain which was later called Cassa di Colmata del Lamone. This was a large wetland that received water and debris from the river during flooding. The presence of wetlands just a short distance from Villanova fueled again the supply of marsh plants and the recovery of the main industry of the village. It is not inaccurate to say that the economy of the community of Villanova benefited from the flooding of the Lamone River. In fact, the village grew along the main road, where many houses had outdoor workshops. The manufacture of items made with marsh plants grew and diversified to the extent that it often became a full-time trade for some people who had previously been primarily farmers but worked in this trade as a sideline. The official census at the end of the 19th century states that out of 3,000 inhabitants, more than 800 worked in the marsh plants trade. It's interesting to notice that women were the majority of people working in this business. Another important event is the birth around the same time of the first cooperative, the Cooperativa delle Erbe Palustri, which was established with the aim of regulating the working hours of laborers, protecting workers' conditions, and promoting the export of goods. From the beginning of the 20th century, annual production increased significantly. The woven items of Villanova were exported to Germany, Austria, Switzerland and France. Unfortunately, a series of events such as World War I and the subsequent economic crisis caused the industry to shrink, despite the efforts of fascism for economic self-sufficiency and the government's support for the local industry. Production picked up again after World War II and remained stable for a while. The production was focused on valuable fashion items. Decorated reed bags, known as borse di Baviera, were a huge hit on the Riviera of Romagna. They were fashion accessories that appealed to women from all walks of life. The years of the Italian economic boom were the height of popularity for the handicraft of Villanova. Nearly 70,000 items were produced between 1958 and 1963. Among these were elegant ladies' bags that attracted the attention of some important fashion houses. Unfortunately, the advent of plastic and synthetic fibers brought the industry of Villanova to an end. The widespread availability of similar but much cheaper items brought the irreversible decline of a business model based on consideration for the environment, for the local area, and for wild plants. People still have a lot to learn from this sustainable and responsible model. The Ecomuseo delle Erbe Palustri intends to preserve and pass on this historical heritage of knowledge and values.